Hello, and thank you for joining me as I show you my take on a Louisiana gumbo. Let's get into the ingredients. I have the ingredients for today's gumbo laid out on my island, so let's start on the right and work our way through it. We have all-purpose flour and oil to start our roux. We have bay leaves, parsley, garlic, your regular Cajun seasoning, cayenne and black pepper and white pepper, salt, onion, pepper, celery. I have some okra, a can of diced tomatoes. The meats we're going to have in today's gumbo are snow crab, shrimp, those are 26/30s. We have some scallops at 40/60s, squid rings, a chicken breast, and rice to serve it over. So those are our ingredients for today's gumbo. Let's get started with the cook. So the first thing we want to do before we start any cooking is, of course, wash our hands. Now that our hands are nice and clean, we can start the actual prep. So since I'm making two pots of gumbo, I'm gonna make 2 recipes. I'm only going to need half of the vegetables that I have laid out here. So half of them will go back in the refrigerator and half will stay out for this first pot of gumbo. So whenever I'm doing a lot of prepping vegetables or stuff where I'm going to end up with some trash, I will have a trash bowl next to my cutting board. That way I don't have to keep going back and forth to the trash can. So for this recipe, I'm going to be using 1 whole onion. It's going to be diced up. Once again, this is my take on a gumbo. I'm not necessarily using a recipe from any one particular. So I will put the ingredients list underneath, but I really don't have a recipe that I am using per se. Alright, so let's get this onion chopped up. This is just going to be a rough chop because it is going to be basically cooked down into the gumbo. You're not really going to have whole pieces of onion in your spoon of gumbo.
Alright, so we have 1 onion cut and ready to go.
Next thing we need is a bell pepper. And in my house we like our bell pepper, so I will probably be making this a little bit bigger pieces of the bell pepper. Okay, next is the celery. I'm using a couple stalks. This is some really big celery, so if you're using maybe a little bit smaller, maybe you might need more than just 2 ribs. Alright, the final fresh vegetable we're going to use today is going to be the okra. Basically all I'm going to do is take the ends off and then chop it up. A lot of people don't like okra because they say it's too slimy. But what that slime will do is actually get in there in your gumbo to help thicken up your gumbo. All right, so we have our vegetables all ready to go. Next thing we're gonna do is prepare the chicken and cook that chicken breast. Okay, so I'm not a big fan of handling raw chicken, so what I do is I will put on some gloves. So I have one chicken breast. So I'm going to do a real simple seasoning on this chicken breast. I'm just going to be going with salt and fresh cracked pepper. It's going to be so salt and pepper on both sides, and then we'll get it started cooking. Like this artisan infused olive oil. This one has garlic in it. I really love the garlic flavor that it provides to the meal. And then we're going to add our chicken. All right. So the chicken is started. Let's while that's going, we can get our roux started. So basically we got a big old stock pot. What you're going to do is you're going to add oil to the bottom of this pot. So the chicken breast is cooking. The oil has come up to temperature, so now we're going to add equal parts of flour to the oil that we put in here. So the chicken is cooking nicely. The oil is heated up. We want to do this on a medium-low temperature. You don't want to burn your roux. We're going to use approximately the same amount of flour that we have oil. So I have about a half a cup of oil in there. So I'll just sprinkle in a half a cup of flour, and we'll get this roux started. So we're going to be looking for a nice brown roux. What's going to happen is your flour and the oil will combine, and it's going to get thick at first. It's going to be like a paste. And then as it cooks down, it'll thicken up even more, and then it will thin back out. And you really want to watch this because you don't want to burn it, but we want to get a nice dark roux going. Sounds like the chicken's searing nicely. Let's go ahead and flip that over, see how that looks. All right, that's looking good, and I mean just salt and pepper, but boy does it smell good already. So our chicken is cooked mostly. We've got a good sear on it. It's going to be pink on the inside, which is fine, because once I cut it up and it goes into the gumbo, it will finish cooking inside the gumbo pot. So we're going to set this aside, let this cool down, and then we'll chop it up and get it ready for the gumbo. Meanwhile, our roux is boiling away, starting to get a little bit of a blonde color. Once again, we're looking for a dark brown. So I just looked at my reference notes, and I have used the full amount for both of my pots of gumbo in this one pot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spoon about half of this out into a bowl to use in my next recipe. If you burn your roux, just start over. All you're doing is would be throwing away is your flour and oil, which are two of the cheapest ingredients in this cook. Okay, so we have our roux cooking on low. It is getting close. The chicken breast has cooled down to room temperature, so I'm going to chop this up and get this ready. So because I'm going to be making two recipes, what I'm going to do is go through and separate my seafood into halves. And we're going to drain our scallops first and get them a rinse in cold water. So next I'm going to do the same thing with the scallop rings. Finally, I have these shrimps that I got to deal with. I'm going to have to peel them. They are deveined and deheaded and sliced, so all I got to do is pull the peels off and then they'll be ready to go. So, and I'll use half of those. Meanwhile, I got to go check on my roux. So this is getting a nice color. Once it gets that dark brown, it's getting close. So the final meat that I need to separate is going to be the snow crab jumbo lump crab meat. Okay, so this is pre-cooked, pre-steamed. So basically I just need to take half of it and put it in a bowl. So the roux has developed has a real nuttiness to it. So once we get to this color, we're going to add our onions and our bell peppers. So we have our onions and our bell peppers. We're going to add those right in, and we're going to cook those until the onions are wilted. I'm going to raise my temperature up to about a medium and get these cooking. So once again, this is one whole onion and one whole green pepper, roughly chopped. So these onions and peppers have been going for about 10-12 minutes now. Starting to wilt. Stirring them occasionally. You really don't want to add color to the onions and bell peppers. You're really just trying to get them to wilt a little bit, start cooking, which is the point we're at right now. So now I'm going to go ahead and add the 8 cups of water. So there's 4 and 8. All right. So give this a stir. That roux will mix into the water, and then we will add our spices and our okra and our celery. So there's our okra in and our celery in. Give that a stir. And I'm going to put this up to high, bring it up to a boil, and then we'll drop it back down to a simmer. So to that, I'm going to add salt, fresh cracked black pepper, a 1/4 teaspoon of white pepper, a dash of cayenne, ground red pepper, add 2 bay leaves, and about 2 tablespoons of your favorite Cajun seasoning. Add 1 clove of minced garlic, which is about a tablespoon, or a teaspoon rather. So there's our minced garlic. To those spices, we're going to add about a 1/2 can of our diced tomatoes and give that a good stir. Now we're going to add our calamari and our shrimps. Calamari and shrimp are in. Once again, give that a stir. And we're still bringing this up to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, we'll drop it down to a simmer. So the only things we have left out are our scallops, our crab meat, and our chicken. So now that this is just coming up to a boil, we are going to give it a stir and drop that temperature down to a simmer. And we're going to let this cook for about an hour now. So I'll be back in about an hour. So this gumbo's been simmering for about an hour now. It's reduced probably by a 1/4. So now is the time to add the chicken, the crab, and scallops. So the reason these are added last is because they can fall apart. So you want to be a little bit more gentle when you're stirring these in. But this will be added, and then we'll give this about another 15 minutes to a half hour, or until you're ready to eat, basically. Also, I have my rice cooker. I have 4 cups of rice, water, and that's going to be ready to go for when it's time to serve. All right, we'll see you when this is ready to serve. Show you how good it is. So the last thing you want to do before you start serving is you want to get some parsley and put some parsley in there and stir it around. And once again, this is going to be for both sets of gumbo that I've. Fresh parsley, it's about, I don't know, a tablespoon for the pot of gumbo. So let's take the lid off the other one. And then you just stir that in. So I'll bring you back once we're serving it. So we have a bowl of rice, and we have the gumbo.
Is that for me?
So this is my take on seafood gumbo. It is scallops, shrimps, calamari, some lump crab, and that extra chicken breast that we had served over rice. And this is Jen's first time trying my gumbo.
Hello. Looks very good. All right. Very tasty. Got a little bit of heat, but not over the top. You did great.
Awesome. I'm glad you like it.